What's the most twisted family rule you've ever heard of? When I was 7 and my little brother was born, I said, "Is it a boy or a girl?" And my mother pressed her hand over my mouth and told me I would never speak again. Those were the last words I spoke for 11 years. The silence thing wasn't new in our family. It came from the religious community where both my parents were raised. The rule was that only the youngest child in the family was allowed to speak, so the older siblings couldn't corrupt them. I had 3 older siblings, none of whom I'd ever heard speak. My sister was only 2 years older than me, so she'd been silent almost her whole life. Mom still had her voice because she was the youngest in her own family, but Dad had been silenced when he was 5 and his little sister was born. Mom absolutely loved this rule and would mock Dad constantly for his silence, saying things like, "It's so peaceful without your stupid opinions," while he could only communicate through gestures that she usually ignored. Our house was eerily quiet, just Mom's voice, and for the first 7 years of my life, mine. But then my baby brother Ian was born. Mom said, "You've had 7 years to say everything you needed to say, and now it's his turn to be the special one. Big girls don't need voices when they have a baby brother to protect." She told me that if I ever made any sound again, including crying or laughing, she would send me away to live with strangers who didn't love me like she did. She put tape over my mouth for the first week to help me remember my new role in the family while my older siblings looked at me with haunted sympathy. Overnight, I became invisible while my new brother was treated like a precious prince. I realized this was how my older siblings had felt this whole time, and now I was in hell with them. Mom homeschooled all of us to keep our family's traditions secret, but Ian got real lessons where he could raise his hands to ask questions, just like I used to. Now, I just read silently with my older siblings. Mom would terrify me by showing me charts proving that Ian got stupider whenever I made any sound, and I genuinely believed I was stealing his intelligence. "Look how much damage you did with that cough," she'd say, showing me fake declining numbers. "Do you want to ruin his future?" I became obsessed with perfect silence, afraid that even breathing too loudly would hurt him. Ian never appreciated our silence. He'd deliberately break things in the house and blame his older siblings, knowing we couldn't defend ourselves. He'd whisper cruel things like, "You're so ugly and worthless and you can't even tell anyone I said it," while Mom praised him for being patient with his disabled siblings. Watching my dad suffer under the silence rule became excruciating now that I knew that was what my future would be too. One evening during dinner, I watched him try to gesture something important to Mom, only for her to wave him away dismissively while my brother laughed at him. Something inside me snapped, and I stood up from the table and said the first words I'd spoken in 11 years. "Listen to him." The effect was immediate and terrifying. Ian started screaming, "I'm getting stupid, I'm getting stupid," while clutching his head dramatically. Mom's careful mask slipped completely as she turned on me with pure rage and yelled, "You're killing him!" She locked me in what they called the silence room, a soundproof basement chamber where I was supposed to reflect on what I'd done. I'd seen my sister sent there once because she screamed when she broke her arm. My brother faked a seizure the next day, claiming that my voice had poisoned his brain, and the whole extended family mobilized to restore order. They produced fake medical records, forced my older siblings to sign statements against me, and threatened to have me declared legally incompetent. I actually started doubting my own sanity when my oldest brother, who'd been silent for 23 years, whispered, "Just be quiet and it all goes away." But then someone ended it all, my father. He came down to the basement one night when my mother was beating the sound out of me, while I bit my lips shut to keep from crying out, and he shouted, "Enough!" His voice was rusty and cracked, but it shattered Mom's